Hi, this is RN Bhaskar from Bhaskar Ki Business Batein. And as always, this channel talks to you about policy, about stories, and about interviews. And this time, I'm going to talk to you about a policy, not exactly a policy, but an economic development. And this economic development is about the widening gap between the proclamations government spokespersons make and the hard economic numbers that are there. Every now and then, you'll see a minister or a government official coming up and saying, India is doing wonderfully. India has a unique spot. India is doing marvelously. India is the best country in the world. It's good to be nationalistic. It's good to be proud of your country. But it's bad to tell a story that is not true. India is, in a way, guilty of telling stories that are not true. India is actually vulnerable. India is underperforming. And nowhere is the underperformance of India is visible more than in two areas. One is the collapse of the Indian rupee. It's collapsing again and again and again. Remember when this government came to power, the rupee was about 60 rupees to a dollar, and the politicians then said, we will improve and make the rupee stronger. It'll be 40 rupees to a dollar. Instead, it's crossed 84 rupees to a dollar. And there's a second problem. And the second problem is that India was a marvelous trading country in the past. If you look at one of my podcasts where I talk about how India bankrupted Rome, yes, we bankrupted Rome. You'll find that India knew how to make money. Government policies have throttled India's ability to make money. And the result is that India's trade has become weaker and weaker and weaker, as the chart will tell you. India is losing its exports, and India is seeing its imports grow. In other words, its balance of trade is worsening year after year. And of all the things that we're trading in, the one country that should be looked at very carefully is India's trade with China. First, the good news is that in spite of government hostility towards China, India-China trade has kept on growing and growing and growing. The bad news is that Chinese exports to India are greater than India's exports to China. This makes me wonder, or makes anyone wonder, why is India not banning Chinese imports? And the answer is very simple. Look at the things we import from China. When you look at the things that we import from China, you realize that most of the imports are chemicals, and they are also electronics. So you say, okay, ban both. The trouble is, if you ban both, you will not be able to export many of the things that we export, which use Chinese components for electronics, and which use Chinese APIs for making pharmaceuticals and specialty chemicals. If you ban those imports from China, you'll find your exports crash. India is dependent on China even for its exports. And that is why, even though we may say anything about China, China is crucial to India's survival, at least in the business of exports. If China's imports decline, you can be sure India's exports will also decline. So you have a situation where trade deficit with China remains at an all-time high, and India is losing exports for several reasons. One, yes, its exports to China have also suffered. Why did exports to China decline? Well, the simple reason was the government banned exports. It banned exports of sugar. It banned exports of cotton yarn. It banned exports that we were exporting to China and which China wanted. Now, when you ban exports, China will find other places to import these from, and India has lost the market. Banning exports is never a good idea, and India has learned how to ban exports. Now, India is now suddenly talking about warming up relations with China, which is a good thing. If relations warm up with China, you can be sure that trade between India and China will increase even further, which also means that your balance of trade will grow even further with China. But then does India have a choice? Till India learns not to ban exports, and till India learns how to create goods that China wants, you'll have this problem. At the moment, we need Chinese imports. You've gone in for semiconductor exports, you've gone in for phone exports. Many of the components that go into these products come from China. So India has no choice but to look at China and find out ways how to improve trade with China. As you will see from this chart, you'll find that the maximum exports that have fallen are with China. And much of it is because of government bans. And you'll find that the maximum imports are from other countries. Eventually, when you look at the trade balance in India, you'll find that India's trade has not been very great. When you look at balance of trade in dollar terms, you'll find that India's trade, which used to be higher, has actually become lower. When you export less, when you import more, when you keep on creating hurdles in the path of industrialists who export and import, you are going to suffer trade. And when you suffer trade, you also make the investment climate very, very muddy. As a result, domestic investors in creating new companies in India has started declining. Foreign investments to create new jobs in India has also started declining. And for a country's growth, the most important indicator, which is known as the asset test, is whether investments are coming into the country. Look at this chart. You'll find that investment from overseas into India has been declining. And that means unless India improves its attitude towards businessmen, does not rate them, does not make life difficult for them, business will either leave India or will stop investing in India. And that will mean even foreigners will stop investing in India. India is losing FDI, India is losing business, and India is increasing unemployment. If all these need to be addressed, you need a policy rethink, and the government has not done that. India is vulnerable. It is vulnerable because things it could have exported, you have stopped. For example, it has not encouraged leather exports and beef exports significantly. It has created obstacles in the path of businessmen who export and import, and they start asking too many questions, making life difficult for industry. Remember, India has always earned money. And if you don't allow that money to come into India, that money will be kept overseas. You improve your climate of investment in India, that money which is lying overseas will begin coming back in India. Can the government become more industry friendly? Can the government become more business friendly? That is the question that will decide whether India remains vulnerable, whether India can outperform. Currently, it's vulnerable and India underperforms. Thank you for watching this channel, and do click the subscribe button, because when you do that, you will be informed about new concepts that we talk about in this channel. We talk about things that people seldom talk about. And that is why you should be paying attention to this channel more often than you think necessary. Thank you again for watching. See you again next week. Take care of yourself. All the best.